So, the DNC has put out a 2018 survey. Now, I want to break down what this survey actually is. Because let's look at it. Is this a clearly objective survey expressing the interests of the DNC membership? And I would say it's not. This is primarily a survey focused on currently existing DNC strategy and focusing it bullet point by bullet point on that. The options and the opportunities where they give the member, the survey taker, actual free and open choice to make their own input, their own real, individual input is, let's see, 2, 3, 4, 5. There are 5 very, very small sections of other where people can actually address things that the DNC has not put on this survey. So that's not much. So then we gotta ask, what did the DNC put on this survey? What were their focuses? What were their interests? Well, over 20% of what they're focused on is Trump and the Republicans. Opposing Trump and the Republicans, but more so, not even just opposing them. They want to know how much you dislike them. They want to know how much you're troubled by them. So they want to know how scared you are by them. And you want to know how much they want to know how much you hate them, or disturbed. I guess that's scared too, to some degree. They're not interested in, let's break that down. What specifically? So the Republican agenda. This one's a little more detailed. They want to know about how troubled you are about the Affordable Care Act being the attempts to repeal and replace, the Muslim ban, the more on deportation laws and border wall, federal budget, billions of dollars, focusing the budget in terms of Medicare and education and other things like that. They want to focus on the Republican focus on defunding public schools, and privatizing of public schools, civil rights, and LGBTQ, dismantling of the EPA, tax cuts, gun regulation, restrictions on Wall Street being loosened, so deregulation, basically. So those are the big focuses. When they ask you about the Republican agenda, they're actually asking you about, mainstream policy concerns about things that the Republicans have actually been physically doing. So that's not that bad. That's great. That's fairly good. That's good. But then there's the points on Trump. And we start getting into just pandering to policyless nonsense stuff. That why is this important? Let's look at it. Let's look at it. Let's see. Let's see. You tell me, is any of this important? Because to me, let's look. His erratic temperament and judgment. So, points of personality. First and foremost on the list. Is Trump's presidency, is a bad thing that his personality is a negative influence on our society? Well, yes. But I would argue so is every other president who talks in rigid ways and pretends that no one in Congress lies. And, like so on and so forth. So we got, pathological liars who are focused on their image around people and not being who they really are. And they want to present the best image. They want to look like the public's most desired, They're like, oh, you need to look like this. This is fantastic. Look this way so the public likes you. They're, image-based, vanity-based politics. So when you compare the two, someone who has judgment issues and a temper that's somewhat erratic versus someone who's based in vanity and likability and pretending to be some lack of being genuine. You got one who's actually genuine, but he's crazy. And you got the other one who's not genuine, fairly lying, and just wants you to like them, hiding a lot of other parts of their personality that could be very concerning. So, what's worse? Someone who puts it all out in the open and looks like the craziest person in the world, or someone who hides it all and wants you to like them, but won't say that they're liars or admit the problems or deal with the issues. To me, that's a non-issue. Yeah, we want someone in the presidency who's got great personality, but really, mostly, we want someone who's there to enact good, strong policies. Their personality, their judgment, at best that goes into diplomacy and working together and communication. Those things are good, those things are important. But kissing ass is not good for those things either. So we don't have a DNC or a Republican Party or Trump. No one's good at that. You want to talk about making that better? Let's go for it. Let's talk about the right kind of candidates. I'd love to hear it. Not, these are the guys we don't like, and this is what we don't like about their personality. Just purely superficial bullshit. You want to talk about real good personalities in politics? Let's get a real good personality elected. Let's look at more of this. Early morning tweets. Well, his tweets are vulgar and offensive and, oftentimes draw, reactionary. But that's a public issue. That's a social issue. It's not a presidential issue. This is not a concern of party politics. That's a social issue. That's a social issue. Front and center and social. You don't like his tweets? Tweet back at him. That's not the DNC's job. No, it's not. It's called social media, not political media. Even better, it's not called political. This isn't Congress, This isn't political legislation. This is some asshole tweeting on his Twitter page. Is he the president? Yes. Should the president be doing that? No. Should we make that a political concern? No. Should we make that a social concern? Yes. Why is the DNC talking about it? There is no good reason. Next up, his attacks on women. Again, a social issue. People should not be attacking women any more than they attack men or black people or Mexicans or any other form of identity. Identity attacks are bad. Other Trump issues that they think are very concerning. These are the what? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. The 12 potential most concerning points that they think we should focus on in Trump issues. Trump being president. Trump doing presidential things or not presidential things. And then the one option to say, oh, I don't really care about that. I don't find Trump's presidency disturbing. So that's your only way to oppose them saying, them promoting this agenda of we don't like Trump. And it's a good agenda to promote, I suppose, but it depends on what level you're talking. So the next one. Reckless and dangerous foreign policy positions. Okay, there we go. Where actually this has policy in the wording. So they're talking. Okay, Trump is aggravating the shit out of North Korea. I'll tell you, that's concern. That's a policy focus right there. Thumbs up, DNC. Now, if we're going to talk most concerning policies, it's up there. It's up there. But the real question, is there anything they leave out? Let's look. His administration on... Okay, so this is him... No, not administration. Admiration. So this is about Vladimir Putin and Russian meddling. So, is it disturbing how connected Trump is to Russia? So here we are back to, I call it fear-mongering, but the media is making it that. The DNC, we'll see. I don't know. Maybe they're objective on it. There needs to be some focus on it. Russia is important. But not that important. It's important if he broke the law that we pursue that. It's not important that we spend 24/7 ramping up everyone's fears against it. You don't need to be that afraid. Just look at what he's doing. Look at what he's doing. Look at the policies he's enacting. Don't just say collude, Russia, Putin. Because neither of those keywords have anything to do with things that are actually being done now. In terms of things that have been done before, yeah, maybe they do. Let's actually look at that. Let's let the investigation see through, because, besides the details, we have a whole lot of bullshit. There's a whole lot of speculation, there's a whole lot of crap, there's a whole lot more emphasis put on something that, there's a whole lot more detail put into it than there actually are details in the investigation. That's a problem. If you're not talking about the details of the investigation, what are you talking about? You're just talking about other crap. Crap that's not relevant, crap that's not important, crap that's speculation. There's a lot of speculation. So it's like, let's see what's there. Let's find out. Do your own investigation. All this opinion, all this other stuff, all this uselessness, leave it aside. I would have rather seen on this survey how important is it for dealing with investigations. And I think that might be somewhere in here. But then we have to jump down the Russia thing as well. His offensive and hateful rhetoric. There's a lot of people out there with offensive and hateful rhetoric. That he has a platform for it, that's pretty bad. But he was, he got the votes. Well, he got the electoral college. He didn't get the votes. But he pretty close to getting the votes. What, within a few million? That's, in terms of how many people are in this country, that's a pretty small margin. It's like 1%. It's like less than 1% or something, right? Less than 2%. That's too close. It's too close. It's not good. It's not something you can blame on just Russia or just Hillary or Bernie or fucking the small fucking percentage that the Green Party takes. Are you serious? If we're pointing fingers, we gotta look in all directions. Let's say that. Just Russia, 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 Russia. Trump and his hateful rhetoric is just hateful rhetoric again. Not a policy. Don't care. Shouldn't care. Not important. Social issue. Should not be focused on by the DNC. We need to address it on Twitter. Like we're doing. I'm sure we're all doing it. Address it on Twitter. Address it in the public. Let the politicians make their addresses to it as well. But what are you if you're talking policy, if you're going to say this is politics, what are you going to say? That we should ban offensive and hateful rhetoric in our political mediums? That I'm going to disagree on. Hell no. Because then how do we define what's offensive? What's hateful? Well, hateful is pretty clear. What's offensive, though? Everything can be offensive. You know, I'm a progressive. That can be pretty offensive to mainstream Democrats, you know? I say we should have free college. That's kind of offensive to someone who's like, fuck that. I say we should stop electing, the Chris Murphys and the establishment Democrats and put in place people who are not beholden to corporate money and corporate interests. That's kind of offensive to the corporate interests. They're really offended by that, Can't talk about that anymore. So I'm not a fan of any of that, if anyone's for that. That's not a political issue. We cannot ban offensive or hateful rhetoric in... Look, freedom of speech. Let's leave it at that. You don't want hateful rhetoric? Then don't speak hateful rhetoric and sell people on not speaking hateful rhetoric. This is a social issue. Tackle it from a social standpoint. You're not winning the battle? Don't go to politics to try and win it. Win the battle where it stands. Go to the heart of the issue. Because people will just keep going for what they find valuable, what they find useful, and if they find some value in their hateful rhetoric, they're going to keep doing it, no matter what laws you put against them. We have to directly focus on those values. Deal with them on a social level. Talk to people. Communicate. Debate. Find points of agreement. There's a million ways we can go. There's a million ways that those ways we can go wrong or not be effective. And there's a million ways they can be effective. It goes into the minutia of how you do it. Let's see what else. His dangerous rhetoric towards North Korea. So that seems to be pretty close to the point they just made with foreign policy positions. But it is a little different, because if we're talking foreign policy positions, we could say, Israel. He's making, in favor of Israel now, favoring Israel over some sort of equality in the Israel-Palestine, some sort of actual, it's basically just saying like, yeah, go ahead, Israel, bomb the shit out of them. I'm for it. So foreign policy positions is sort of separate from the North Korea thing, but I would really just put that under one point. This seems like they're just trying to hash out a little extra. Try and make it sound like there's more things that they put on this list. That's just the point. It's one policy point. Foreign policy. North Korea, Israel, Syria, Moab bombs, stuff like that. His opposition to women's reproductive freedoms. That's policy. This second issue they pointed out here, we could call it. And it's pretty much the same position, if not like a different level of that extreme, as any other Republican position on women's reproductive rights. George Bush versus him, no more equally disturbing. They're both disturbing. Yay, good point. Not really. But yeah, good. 2 points. We'll go with that. Next up, his decisions to pull out of the Paris Agreement. Okay, climate. Third policy thing here. His refusal to release his tax returns. That's not really a policy thing. That's just transparency and being able to trust your leader. And we have a lot of that on both sides. But it's not good. Let's see his tax returns. I mean, we don't really need to. Because we kind of know, you know? It's obvious what's there without us being able to point to it and say, here's the facts. It's just giving an additional fact sheet to pretty much what we more or less already know. So, big whoop. That would have been more important when we were electing him. That's kind of when it was important, so why are we focusing on it now? We should maybe focus on it in 2020 if we haven't kicked him out of office. This doesn't seem important to 2018, does not seem like a 2018 priority to me. It just doesn't make any sense. Who wants to see his tax returns? Mueller? No, that's important. He should see it. Public disclosure of that stuff? Release? Leave it for election time. Really. This seems nonsense. This is like, oh, so we want to see his tax returns so we can dislike all Republicans and make sure they don't get elected in the midterms? That's a strategy, okay, fine, but why don't we just, put out good candidates? Focus on the candidates rather than say that every Republican is Trump and sort of rise to that hatred of one person? Oh, fuck that identity, fuck that man, and his offensive everything, and his vulgarness, and he's not the kind of politician. It's like, I get it. It makes sense. Washington hasn't seen that. They're sort of sheltered from that reality. But the rest of this world, we kind of see it every now and then. We see it a lot more often. Talk to women who get catcalled down the fucking street. What, now this is a big issue? When the guy's the president? It's like, no, it's a social issue that's been there for fucking years. It's like, if you want to make that you don't make that a political issue. You talk about, important things. Medicare, what they're doing there, all that crap. Let's see if they do talk about that. See if they get to Trump on policy any more than that. His efforts to repeal Obamacare. Oh, yes. Finally, they did another issue. Good job. That's the third issue. The third real issue. Fourth real issue. So yeah, abortion, foreign policy, climate, and healthcare. 1 point for each. Well, actually 2 points for the foreign policy. His attempts to interfere in the Russia investigation. Isn't that the same? Well, interference isn't a good thing. We'll put that out there. Him meddling with the election, kicking off investigators, that's just generally not a good thing. Yeah, I'll give it that. But is that a policy concern or issue? No. So, out of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. That's, half the points based on policy. That's not bad. But then that's also 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It's like, about 5 points maybe. Just based on baloney. Baloney. Just drama. Just 5 points of drama right there. In the middle of, this DNC survey. I'm talking about, this is like, how does the DNC move forward? Okay, well, let's look at Trump, let's look at Russia, let's look at Republicans, and let's have about half of our concerns about Trump be based on social issues and drama surrounding him. We're going to create a drama TV show about it. This is like The Walking Dead politics or something. Alright. Well, what else do we have here? A whole list of good issues. They do actually go into it. They don't go into detail about these policies that they should be focused on, but they at least mention them. They're saying, how would you prioritize the difference between things like voting and wages and economy and healthcare and immigration and gun stuff and, healthcare and justice. Citizens United, that's a specific one. Good. LGBTQ. Social Security and Medicare, that's a little more specific. And then they say schooling. More specifically, debt-free college, they say. What do we hear there? They say, protecting and strengthening public schools and making debt-free college a reality. That's a step. So debt-free, that's their goal. Straight out of the Hillary playbook. No free college. It's not worth it. We don't have, most normal low-wage jobs aren't based in college degree, basic college degrees to begin with. We're not dealing in that anymore. In this day and age, it's not practically necessity. Public schooling. We should just stand against going the other direction, which is privatization of public schools. That's the hard hitting. That's the strong policy for the people. Debt free, yeah, we can do that. We can do debt free, and then another 60-80 billion or so to the military for bombing the shit out of people. That sounds great. And to be fair, they don't say anything about wars here, but they don't really need to, because the voter base, people who are checking off all these little boxes, then, okay, there's some stuff about international issues. That's focused on war. Let's be real about that. But they don't say, how much should we be spending on bombs? That's not in the questions. Because they know how much we should be spending on bombs. Billions and billions and billions. And do not hesitate to spend more on nonsense. Like boats and other shit to make us look like glamorous military men that we probably will never use. Unless they know something I don't. Alright. No, let's look at some other long-term goals here. Because I think that's the more important part of, the rest of the stuff they talk about here. What else do they have in my breakdown of long-term issues and goals here? They're talking about building an economy that works for everyone, not just CEOs and corporations. That's great. How? Where's the policy in this long-term goal? They don't say. Does that mean they have a plan? More or less means they probably don't have a plan. That's just flowery rhetoric. If they had a plan, they would say something along those lines, like single-payer healthcare, free college, Medicare for all, something. They'd say something. They're not trying to pass anything. They don't have an interest. They just want to build an economy that works for everyone, but how? Who knows? It's a big mystery. Really it is. At least in this survey. Become a global leader in clean energy. That's not bad. Not bad at all. That's good. How? Do they say what we're going to do about fossil fuels? Is this a transition period? Are we okay with coal and fracking for a little while? A little bit of nuclear here? Which I guess nuclear is... it's not clean. Let's be honest there. It's like, where do we put all that nuclear waste? But it's not like adding to CO2 emissions. That's true. It's not a global warming issue. Or a climate change issue. So, that doesn't really clarify to me at all their position on that. They're just saying, build towards clean energy. Well, what else do we have here? Good paying jobs. So they're talking more about the economy. Again, pretty vague. How are we creating those jobs? Are we giving more money to CEOs to create those jobs? That's been the strategy for years. Trickle down. It's kind of like a Democratic strategy as much as a Republican. Really, I haven't heard a Democratic point of view of how do we get more jobs? I've heard Bernie's points of view. Those are good ones. $15 minimum wage, all that stuff. Put more money in the pockets of the people so that we create more jobs. I've heard that stuff from not so corporate Democrats. Let's see. Tom Perez, tell me what you got. I haven't heard it. But, if you come out with a policy position, that's great. Otherwise, it's just platitudes. Strengthening and protecting public schools. How? Not by adding more public schooling, like free college. Apparently we don't want public college. Private college is just fine, the way we have it. Corporation owned, lots of money on books, pay lots of money on housing, pay lots more money on the schooling itself, get a decent deal out of it, all focused towards you becoming success-orientated and capitalist-hungry and profit-driven like everyone else who's created more problems in our society. That seems to be what college is right now. It's like you have to pay them a shit ton of money to be a hungry capitalist, to learn how to become a hungry capitalist. That's a pretty shitty system driven towards a pretty shitty system. All right. Tax cuts. Oh, okay, that's economic. Yeah, tax cuts for people. But Democrats like to go with the sort of weird equal direction of that. Oh, well, yeah, we'll give a tax cut to... Wait, no, tax cuts? Wait, hold on. Republicans give tax cuts. What am I talking about? Providing tax cuts for the middle class and ensuring the wealthy pay their fair share. Well, that's really good. Because usually they're talking about raising taxes, but, what does that look like? Let's see a budget. Seriously, let's see a budget. It doesn't give me finite details. How much are you giving a tax cut to the middle class? What about the poor? Are they getting a tax cut? No, you're just talking about the middle class. Okay, you want the wealthy to pay their fair share. How much? Not giving me many details here. Sounds like it could draw into platitudes again. And bullshit. Infrastructure, highways and bridges. The $15 minimum wage. That's pretty specific. That's good. They got on board with that. Or at least for long-term priorities, long-term strategies. Oh, wait. So let me look at this specifically. As Democrats prepare long-term strategies for the 2018 elections, what electoral issues and messages do you believe should be our highest priorities? So that's not really long-term strategy. So they are. They're trying to push $15 minimum wage for a 2018 strategy. That's not that bad. Good job. Debt-free college, I guess they're trying to push that for a 2018 midterm strategy, but, you know, prioritizing it in what way? Most important to least important, so they're asking you. We'll have to see how they do it. Closing tax loopholes, protecting the ACA, reducing cost of prescription drugs, developing immigration, all the good immigration shit. So those are their, let's focus on the 2018 elections priorities. It's not bad, not good, not great, not bad. Nothing to be extremely critical about in those terms. You know, they ask about all the important points in mostly vague terms. They go into specific policy every now and then when talking about things like Citizens United overturning it and dealing with campaign finance reform. You can damn well bet that they love their PAC money, though. You know, how serious they are on this survey at all is a big question, but when they get these surveys and they see the results, maybe they turn a different leaf, maybe they don't, we'll have to see. Otherwise, the most important part, to deal with the people who we know will do this shit and ignore the folks who are just pandering to an audience. So what else did they have? They had priorities for the DNC in terms of election strategy, so they're talking like voting stuff. Winning a certain... What elections do you think we should prioritize and win? Persuading voters who voted non-democratic in 2016. So they're focusing on the 2016 election. They're saying, oh, maybe we can get some Trump voters, basically. Maybe we can get some Republican voters who voted in like this Congress or something or whatever. Winning back control over governorships, winning back control over Congress. So they're focused on getting back the seats that they already had. Winning back the White House, so they're focusing on getting the presidency back in 2020. Improving voter turnout, including new voters. Supporting state Democratic bids. Legislative races, local, county, and such. Organizing around expressed concerns of communities of color. Protecting voters' rights, the ballot box, investing in technology to erase Republican tech advantages. Holding Republican candidates accountable. So yeah, this one, training activists and organizers, investing in research, increasing voter registration and growing base, maintaining volunteer strength. Prioritizing, of course, urban and suburban areas, which is where the DNC thrives. Not so big on the rural. They, again, this kind of proving my point. They're not interested in turning votes. They don't want the rural Republicans. They'd rather just leave that to the Republicans. They would rather lose those votes and lose the elections potentially on those votes if more of those people were in our economy. Increase volunteer efforts. Oh, stand corrected. In rural areas. So, there's a little bit of interest there. They're improving their strategies with vote stuff, focusing on messaging, showing the better connect with Americans, showing voters that DNC cares, tries to win, not just trying to win elections. But with all those points, that being said, they still don't want to turn Republican held districts if they're turnable. Not interested. too much money to waste on something like that. They're sort of are focused on winning elections, basically. Not focused on getting to as many people as possible or giving out real policy decisions or whatever, but hopefully they turn some leaves from the last election cycle. And lastly, they're asking you how you receive your news. Facebook, Twitter, websites, newspapers, televisions, radio, podcasts, Hulu, Xbox, YouTube, direct mail brochures, Pandora, Spotify, iHeartRadio. So they're focused on the big names, really. And then they ask you for your opinion in the last section. So the survey is meh, in my opinion. Some good stuff, some bad stuff, and some stuff that I misinterpreted and jumped the gun on for you guys, but I caught it and gave it to you, and that's clear. So take what you will. That's the DNC survey for 2018, and I'm not very excited.